It's April 15th, 2015. Country Dancer has just spent the winter in the water in Duluth, Minnesota, which is the United States' most northwestern port for the Atlantic Basin. Consequently, you can look around the boat, you can see lots and lots of insulation laying around and shrink wrap over the top of us. We have got to change out some crazed hatches, put new acrylic in them. We're going to show you how that we did that. But pardon the shape of the boat because it's springtime. The first nice day of spring. Well, snow has just melted and we're ready to do hatches. So first thing we're going to do is kind of take tensioner off, pull the hinges out, remove the acrylic from this crazed hatch. I'll show you a picture of how it's crazed in a minute. Put new acrylic in it, drop it back into the hole. Alright? So first, the tensioner is what holds this hatch up. I'm going to get it out of our way. We've got two different style of hatches on the Dancer. We have ocean hatches, this is one of them. They have a little bigger, better hinge arrangement. I'll show you another video of the standard hatches, which have a different hinge arrangement. All of these hatches use the same tensioner. They have a little rubber gasket here. This is all that keeps the water out of coming in the top of this thing. So we hang on to that, put all this back together so we don't lose any pieces. Got a couple of little covers back here. I haven't done one of these, so this is all new to me. I've only read about it. These little covers come off, and then we take the adjuster screws out. Alright, so these are ocean hatches, and the ocean hatches have a different kind of hinge. And these two pieces expand against each other. And once we get them loosened up a little bit so I can get them out of there, we'll shorten it up. It's pretty sticky right now. I won't make you wait on this to see this, but we'll work this loose with the little stuff. And you can see over here, this is the way it works when it comes out. And then once we've got that spacer out of there, then these hinge pins will pull out. They will. They won't pull out easily, but they will pull out. And then we can pull the hatch loose. Alright, okay, so what I've done is I've gotten this little adjuster out. This tensions up by screwing it apart. It spreads and it holds tension against those two hinge pieces. Now, once I've got that loose, these two hinge pieces slide in, the hatch comes out. Now, at that point, I'm going to pull these so we can look at them right quick. These are interesting little pieces. They've made of wedges, two wedges that go together. And when we tension it, these expand to lock into here. It's quite a unique, dare I say, novel way to hold a hatch in. Two little slide pieces there, up against that piece. Get my hand out over here in a second. And these two little pieces there, and that's the hinge assembly. Just to get a little better shot, this hole runs all the way down through, and if I let that wrench drop too far down in there, it won't turn because it'll be trying to pinch this wrench. But I've got to get this thing to turn to slack off. And it's resisting today, so we're going to have to fight with this one for a little while. I want to lose these pieces, and because we're going to do several hatches all at the same time, I'm going to stick all these together so that we don't get them confused and mixed up with our other hatches. So sticking the screws back in them, this keeps them together. There's a little rubber gasket in this piece that we try to be careful of. That's all that keeps the water from coming down through that and into the inside. We've had no problem with these hatches leaking. We're just trying to get rid of the crazed plastic. So there are 2 hinge pins, and down here around all the plastic stuff, we can see right down in here there's a slot. You can actually see a little bit of the pin down the bottom of that hole, and that pin will slide out this side. All we have to do is just get in there and get to the end of that pin. Put a little pressure on it, and it'll slide out the side. Same thing on this one. Once we have those pushed out, drop the hatch back down. The pins are sticking out here at the end now, protruding. And when we take those out, there's a little spacer in there that we have to be kind of careful of. Oops, sorry. Sometimes they come out easy, sometimes they don't come out so easy. And you can see all the dried grease on those. These come out, they have the pointed end, it goes in, and they have a notch in the shaft. And that's going to drop into a little spacer that's sitting right here. And that spacer is going to drop out in a second. And when you jam this in here, that slot ties up to that spacer and it keeps that pin in place. Pins are out. When I pick this up, I'm going to make sure I follow those little spacers. I don't want to put in new spacers for this thing. And when we put them back together, we'll make sure and grease all that up with some silicone grease. And our hatch is now for. Alright. There's a couple different sizes of hatches on Dancer. We're going to show you this second size. And Lumar, for whatever reason, chose to use very different style hardware on each of the different hatch sizes. So these little 12 by 12 hatches, or 10 by 10, whatever they are, looks like the same tensioner gear, but the hinge mechanisms are all completely different. Okay, so we got 3 different hatches we're working on today. We've got some 18 by 18s. We got the 2 different styles of 18s by 18s. We just saw the other style a second ago with the rolled hinges. This is a smaller hatch, and it has yet a 3rd style of hinge pin. So Lumar, in their infinite wisdom, found plenty of ways to be creative on hinges. There are 2 spacers that fell out of that we've got to make sure we hang on to. So there's all the hinge gear right there. There's all the hinge gear for the small hatch. Okay. The seal is right there. It keeps the water from going down in there. So we'll make sure and grease that up before we go back in. I like to keep these together just so that the pieces don't get lost. Okay, this is an ocean hatch, and these are put together differently than the other hatches. The other hatches we have will be glued, the acrylic will be glued in. These are put in there with a special gasket. So for this one, I have shot this full of PB Blaster to break the screws loose. And I successfully got all 4 of those loose without rounding any of them. And these will go back together with butyl tape to try and stop any corrosion from the aluminum and the stainless steel. We can see a little pit right here where just a little bit of metal is cutting in there and caused electrolysis. very careful to prevent electrolysis between the stainless steel and the aluminum. Alright, so we pulled the pins out. There's a slide bar inside of this, I think, that holds two pieces together, so I don't want to booger this up. So we're going to use our special high dollar mallet, soft mallet, to kind of open that gap up just a little bit. You guys understand the value of a mallet. Just don't have to pay the price for a mallet, that's all. Alright, now we're going to wiggle on this for a few minutes. Once we've got it broken loose, you can see that it's starting to pull apart fairly easy. And I will take my hat off to Lumar on this one. This is coming apart amazingly well for a 16-year-old hatch. Okay, so I basically got this one side broken loose. We hammered on a little bit and broke it loose. Now this rubber seal all the way around is holding things together. So again, it's been in there for 16 years, so it's going to take a little wiggling and waggling to break this thing apart. So we're just going to keep working on it a little bit, and we'll let you come back and show you as we use the techniques. Okay, we've got enough of a split in there that I think I can start prying it apart. There's a lot of corrosion. This has got to go back with some heavy duty corrosion stopper. I'll probably use Lana coat or something on it. Kind of not booger up the edges of the aluminum. Okay, there's one. Those are heavily coated with, looks like Lana coat, and it's worked well considering 16 years in that environment. That's done pretty well. Now we'll just break this side loose from its rubber and pull apart. Okay, using my trusty mallet, I was able to beat against here a little bit, get it to pop loose from the plastic, from the rubber, and now it's just a matter of wiggling this thing off of here. Be very careful that we don't bend anything. That's all got to go back together and be watertight. So there it is. We'll clean that up and we'll be ready to put the new one. Alright, so we pulled this lens out of its frame and peeled the rubber out. The rubber on the ocean hatches is actually bonded, glued here, and this is the seal that runs against the other side of the hatch, so we've got to be very careful with the seal. I'm a little bit surprised to find out that this one is milled down to make that much thinner than the standard part of the port. So we're going to have to figure out how to do that next. Okay, we're going to do two of the smaller hatches now. So these hatches are glued in, so we're going to take them out by cutting the silicone out. When you do this job, you buy your razor blades by the 100 pack because you use them like matches at a wet campfire. You go through them just about that fast. So you can't hold a razor knife, you can't hold a razor blade and do this. So what we do is we chuck it in a pair of vice grips, and then I can get a little more pressure on this. And trust me, we're putting a lot of pressure on that blade. So don't get downwind from it, because these blades also break on occasion, and when they do, things tend to fly everywhere.
Over here, bro.
Alright, once I've carved around it, then as a rule, they're going to come out of there fairly easily. They're glued in with a little piece of adhesive at the bottom. The silicone is filled in around the outside edge. So, for the most part, they're going to come out very simply. Once and a half, a little bit. Sometimes I have to go back and recut one side of it that I didn't get deep enough. In the bigger hatches are obviously more pressure, deeper cuts, more silicone. Just take your time. Okay, and we can see where this was put in with a piece of some kind of foam sealant. It was glued down first. Plastic was put in, that silicone was put around it. So we're going to clean this up a little bit so we can use it as a template to cut our new plexi. Okay, so once we've got it out of there, the thing I have to do is we have to get it cleaned up. And we're going to get it cleaned up really clean because we want to make sure that our new silicone sits in there and it won't stick to this old stuff. So, new butyl tape in the bottom of it. So we wanted to have it perfectly clean for the butyl tape to stick to. And we're going to fill in the sides with silicone just like Wilmar did. So we've got to get all this out of here, and it has to be perfectly clean when we get done. So I'm going to show you some techniques I use for cleaning this. This is one of the worst parts of this whole job, is trying to get all this stuff out of there and clean it up. So first I'm just going to cut the majority of this. This has got a radius at the bottom, which makes it a little tough to cut down in there. But I'm going to just try and free up the majority. Get the big chunks of rubber out. And that'll leave me thinner spots. And if I do this right, I can get this down to where it's almost translucent. You can see through it. And you can see why you need blades. So many blades, because we go through blades like crazy, cutting up against this aluminum oxide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this so it's about that clean, and then I'll show you the next trick. Alright, so what I've done is I've been chewing away at this thing, trying to get the big chunks out. It's kind of a technique that I've used that's done fairly well. I put a blade in a little holder. This one's designed to go on a screwdriver bit handle, but just something to get hold of the handle a little better. And I like to come in, and I push down pretty hard, and I scrape this far, cut that far, and then I roll the blade as I come into the little radius at the bottom. And as I roll the blade, it scrapes right down into the curve. So I can come in here, after I've got most of it out of there, I can come in here and get this thing almost clean enough. Almost clean enough. To redo by just using my razor blade as a scraper. Not quite, but pretty close. That's that little twist at the end that makes it work. The corners are a little different measure. Trying not to mark on the bottom of this too bad. Whatever. Let the screwdriver start flat this way, and I roll it around this way, and just. And I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on there. It's mostly cut. It's just a matter of kind of getting friction to pull the pieces out. And try to leave the anodizing as intact as I can. Try not to scratch anything, no deep scratches. Okay, we're using a Dremel 511E. You buy two of these little pads in a package for about $3.50, and that clips on there, and that's a paint stripper. And what it does is, once we've gotten most of it down, this guy will come in there and it'll pull the rest without doing too much damage to the anodizing on the aluminum. If I use sandpaper, the sandpaper doesn't affect the silicone very much. The silicone just moves out of the way and the sandpaper cuts the aluminum instead. So this is much more effective in pulling this than sandpaper is. Alright, we're going to use our little Makita router, and we're going to use what's called a pattern bit. and it has a roller bearing right here at the top. So what happens is I've taken 3 pieces of double back tape, stuck this to our new plexiglass. This will sit in there and it'll cut and follow exactly the shape of the old window. So when I get done, I'll use the old plexi as a pattern for the new. Get some double-sided adhesive tape. This is mounting tape, which is a little stronger than what we needed, but it'll do the job. This is going to hold this piece of plexi to the other piece of plexi acrylic, so that I can route between the two. So I'll pull this backing. Must be a better technique for that, but I'll work that later. And I'm not going to try and line this up to the edge. I want to be able to cut all the way around it, so I'm just going to get it to fit on there, press it down good, and then we're going to route it. You folks at home have a nice shop and a nice garage to do this stuff in. We're doing it outside here in Duluth on the top of a dock box. Along our edges where we run with the router, we want to take all the stress that we can out of that, so we'll smooth that up too. Okay, what we're doing is we're putting the new seal, rubber seal, on the plexi that we've cut and shaped. The plexi here is thinned out to make the seal fit to it correctly. Very precise size. And now we're going to lube it up with some dishwashing soap and slide it back. Okay, I'm putting this on. You need to make sure that the seal is all the way on there and around it so that it fits in the right spot. Now what I'm going to do is slide. I've covered the pins on both sides with anti-seize because I don't want them corroding or having any problem with the aluminum. Let's put this on the right way. Well, I don't want the aluminum with stainless steel screws to cause any problems. So this pin is aluminum, but it is held together with stainless steel screws. So make sure that my seal's in there all the way around tight. Looks good all the way around. This side, and then we soak this up so it's nice and slippery at this point. And slide right on there. Now, see what I'm doing. I got that little line up on that side, and I got to go down square. Too far out of square, then I bunch up the, which I did a little bit, bunched up the seal on this side. Okay, so I'm checking to make sure the seal fits in the gap all the way around. Doesn't quite pull all the way together. That's okay. A little bit of tension on it, so I can pull it shut. Pick me up my hands and drop the new screws in. The screws are countersunk, so when the screws sit in there flush, they're in there tight. So, okay. All right. Unfortunately, we bought this cast acrylic sheet in Jacksonville. This is 13 millimeter acrylic. We bought it in Jacksonville a year and a half ago. We've been carrying it around with us until we had time that we thought the weather was going to allow us to do this. And as we pulled off the paper today for the very first time, the deep tinted cast sheet that we put on there isn't so deep tinted. So we may be making another video on how you can tint your clear acrylic hatches, because these are going to be just a little bit too bright when we get to Cuba. Alright, so what we're doing now is we're just taping the edge of this so we can keep the silicone where we want the silicone. And I want these edges to be really sharp, crisp, straight. So when we sanded each one of the pieces, I found the side that I thought had the nicest edges on it. I beveled them back because the acrylic is going to be slightly higher than the frame. But I'd like to have just a little more bevel on them anyway. So rather than try and cut this tape and hope to get it straight, I'm going to use the edge that's there. And this adds just a little more bevel to what I've already got. Plus gives me an absolutely perfect edge that I can run my bead up against. As I finish the last corner. Because once again, I want as perfect a cut as I can, rather than try and tape that by eye. I'm just going to trim it all out of there using the edge. Okay, so we couldn't find the butyl tape that we wanted, so we found windshield setting tape, and we're using it to bed the plexi sits down in here. Now shoot over here. And what we've done is we've bedded it down in there, centered up, and then we slowly apply pressure on it with the clamps until the material set down in there tight. And butyl is an active material, and it stays alive forever, so it'll continue to move. I'm sure I know where the hinge is here. It'll continue to move over time, so our big trick is just getting it in there so it's straight, centered. And this could probably be done with shims, but these are so small I can see them. And then we just let the sun, put the pressure on, let the sun heat it up. The butyl gets real soft and clingy. And once we've got it seated down in there good, we know that there's a good water seal all the way around there. And then it's the silicone seal that we put into the sides is really just to fill this gap and to finish sealing the edges so no water can get down to it. Now we did buy one big sheet of 1/2 inch thick acrylic, and these lenses were a little thinner than that when they came from the factory. So we're standing a little proud of the frame. So when we fill it, we're going to fill this up a little bit, and just from our experience, having this flush absolutely flat hasn't been important, but that's why I wanted a good bevel on this edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to tool this silicone. It's important to wipe it between every shot. gives us a nice cleanly tooled edge, which will peel off in a minute. We'll let it set for just a few minutes. Uh-oh. Got a 2x4 in it.
Okay.
Alright, so now we're going to peel off while the stuff's still wet. The idea being that it gives us a nice fine edge. And the edge can self-heal itself. And we don't have to come back and cut it this way. The silicone seal cures with moisture in the air, and so we pick a day that's relatively dry if we can. Okay, so this is our trapezoidal hatch off of the Foredeck, and it's yet a third style. This hinge is very similar to the standard that we looked at with the two shims and the pin that drops through. A couple of holes here that you can reach down in and push that pin out. But this gasket is totally different than anything we've seen on any of the other hatches. This one, there's actually a piece of foam tape that goes down, and this one piece of insulation that hits the glass comes all the way up and hits the inside of the glass here. So we're going to try and be very careful. We don't have a new piece to put in, and we got to get this in the water. So we're going to try and clean this rubber up, get all this cleaned out. Alright, so what we've done is we've used butyl tape on our other two hatches, on our other 7 hatches. This hatch needed to have an adhesive that would stick to the rubber, because the rubber sits further up underneath here. So we couldn't mash butyl in here, so we're using 3M mounting tape instead. And this stuff is a double-sided tape. It's intended for sticking panels together on ambulances and labels on cars. It's pretty permanent, it's waterproof, and it's going to work just fine for what we're trying to do here, if I can get it to peel. Okay, so our 3M magic stick 'em gookum. First can. Working very hard to keep our fingers off of where the tape is going to stick. I'm going to put this in here. Once it's stuck, it's probably stuck, so
What's underneath it?
in. So what we're doing is we're greasing these up. They just have a little seal in there, a little O-ring seal that holds those in there. So if we pack them up with grease a little bit, that grease can help keep that O-ring flexible and soft and working inside there. So I figured out how my handles go in here. The handles go in. These are slotted, so they only fit in there one way and won't turn. The other hatches have a pin, but that's the way these are. So then to try them in, I have to make sure that these work through the range of motion that they're supposed to have. They do. So now I got to match them up. This one matches this one. So both handles go the same way at the same time. And we'll get them all stuck together. So it only goes in there one way, and it doesn't twist. It doesn't freely pivot. The part that needs to be lubricated is this part back here, because this part's pinned in based on this shape. Same over here, and that goes in there only one way. Okay? Alright, so what we're going to do is, these things are supposed to be all plastic and not need lubrication. If we put grease on them, sometimes they can get dirty, which we don't want to do. But at the same time, I'm feeling about anything that doesn't get lubrication is just bound to get something screwy bad with it, so we should always lubricate everything. And we don't lubricate Delaron bearings and stuff, but we'll go ahead and get these in there, and then we'll restore. We'll come back and start our film here in just a minute. Get those set. So it only goes in there one way, and it doesn't twist. It doesn't freely pivot. The part that needs to be lubricated is this part back here, because this part's pinned in based on the shape. So over here, and that goes in there only one way. Most over-engineered part I've ever seen on a boat. Alright, that's it.
Two down?
There may be a better way to do this, but I don't know what it is. You ever wondered how tough your plexiglass is? That tells you right there. Oops, so, I'm pretty sure a couple of you guys saw that I put the frame on this upside down. This piece needs to be at this end instead of the other way around. So you could have mentioned it and saved me all this time, but now I got to take it apart and turn it around. So thank you very much. We usually save a lot of money when we do things ourselves, but once in a while we spend a couple $100 repairing the pieces that this belonged to somebody else, and we'll spend $200 replacing this. So the problem with making a video while you're doing something like this is you're thinking about what the people on the video see instead of what you're doing. So I put the handles with the closures on top instead of the bottom. Cut.